welcome to Week in Review, a look back at many of the top stories affecting residents of Prince George and the North Central Interior. A memorial has been placed on the steps of Prince George City Hall to honor the 215 nameless children found in an unmarked grave in Kamloops. Randy Adams has more. Hundreds of people also gathered on the grounds of a former residential school in Fraser Lake on Sunday. They got together to remember those who survived residential schools across the country. Dave Branco has more. Coming up next on Week in Review, we hear about a shocking bear attack. A campsite is now back open after a worker was attacked by a bear on Monday night. Conservation officers say the victim spent 3 hours being airlifted to a hospital here in Prince George. Ollie Herrera has more on what officers know about the attack. Local Mounties arrested 22 people during a 4-day blitz targeting shoplifters. The RCMP's Downtown Safety Unit worked with loss prevention officers from the London Drugs and Parkwood Mall and made the arrests over 2 separate 2-day periods. On April 29th and 30th and May 17th and 18th, police arrested 19 people for theft under $5,000. Police released all offenders with future court dates in August and September. This project was similar to the one held at Pine Centre Mall in March. The BC government announced a significant grant to help support employers in making their work environment more inclusive for people with disabilities. This week is Accessibility Week in BC, and the week is intended to promote inclusion and accessibility while also celebrating the people in the disability community who are working to identify, remove, and prevent barriers to accessibility. In light of this week, the BC government announced a $4.8 million grant to help employers make their workplaces more accessible. Small businesses will be able to apply for workplace accessibility grants of up to $1,000.
The grant will be administered beginning June 21st through April 30th, 2022 on a first-come, first-served basis. More information is available on Small Business BC's website.
Most of the funding will help support employers create a more accessible workplace for people with disabilities.
It's not exclusive, but like ramps, lighting levels, accessible washrooms, adaptations to vehicles. Under attitudes, you could have anti-bias training. Under practices, you could have training to review and amend the interview process, ASL interpreting, and flashing fire alarms for deaf employees. And then, policies, funding for legal and consulting advice in revising policies and time for staff to revise policies.
Around 33% of people with disabilities reported a temporary or permanent job loss due to the pandemic. Now that employment levels are on the mend, people with disabilities may take longer to reach the same job recovery levels. With the right supports, employers can practice hiring inclusively.
Government's committed to building a barrier-free BC and, to identify, remove, and prevent barriers and to be a truly inclusive province. We must integrate accessibility into all aspects of our lives.
Over the next 2 years, the government is working on the Employer Supports for Persons with Disabilities project. The goal is to help employers hire, rehire, and retain people with disabilities for a long-term and successful employment.
Excited to help disabled people participate fully in their communities.
The project is being run by Small Businesses BC and the President's Group, an organization of 25 change-driven BC business leaders. TFS CKPG News. The automotive market continues to be impacted by a global microchip shortage. Caden Fanshaw reports on how hot the car market is and where it's going to go. Stay with us, sports is coming up next. Sports are quickly getting back up and running since the Provincial Health Office's announcement over a week ago. One of those sports here locally has been football, which is digging its cleats in deep ahead of an exciting competitive summer. Coming up next on Week in Review, community members take part in a heart-shaped fundraiser. This Sunday will be the 34th annual Manulife Heart and Stroke Ride for Heart event, where you can help raise money for heart and stroke researching by completing a heart-shaped route. People can walk, bike, or run their route, and the event even has an app called Share Your Heart that helps you map out your route. This year, local MLA Shirley Bond is taking part in the ride, and she has a personal connection to it too. The event takes place exactly 1 year after her husband passed away due to heart conditions. She and her husband have long been supporters in funding heart and stroke research. Thanks for joining us for the Week in Review. You can watch the CKPG News weekdays at noon, 5, 6:30, and 11. Be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Enjoy your weekend.